Hey guys, I'm Dr. Katelyn Dowling, founder and CEO of Sustainable Self, Inc., and I'm here today to blow the lid off of your materialist worldview.
3, 2, 1.
Dr. Katelyn Dowling, welcome to the show. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me in your office, in your studio here. Thank you for coming on the show. This is like round two for us, and I came the other day for an experience. I want to let you actually have the definition for us,
Sure.
please. But I experienced about a 40-minute Rasha meditation. What did I go through? What is that?
Yeah, sure. So, one of the service offerings I have here through my business, Sustainable Self, is called the Quantum Clinic, right? And so I'm using an experimental scalar energy device called the Rasha to allow people to access a deep state of regeneration and self-healing. So for those who might not be familiar with scalar energy, you could think of it like an intergalactic communication network.
So many cool words already started here. Quantum, intergalactic. This podcast is out of this world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you define some of those terms? Because those are very big terms, especially when we're thinking like applying to our health and our wellness. I usually wouldn't think of those terms.
Yeah. Well, I guess the easiest way to think about it is that on a molecular level, you are nothing but energy, frequency, and vibration,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And so we have these bodies and we walk around the world thinking of ourselves as these physical entities that are totally separate from everything else around us. But really what we've learned over the last 100 years from, quantum physics to spirituality and evolution of psychology and our knowledge of self, we've learned that we are, energy beings.
We're really kind of just all the same, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. At that really core level. And for a lot of people that's pretty abstract and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, or maybe it's not so meaningful to them in their personal life. But, one way to think about it is that there's this physicist out of Orange County. His name is Nassim Haramein. He has a business called the Resonance Science Foundation. And the way he describes it is consciousness just is. Your brain is basically a receiver, and your heart is the tuning dial on tuning to the frequency of your consciousness, what you would experience as your consciousness.
Like my life experience.
Yeah. And the thoughts that you have in your mind, right? And so if you can shift into a place where you don't think of, you begin to imagine yourself as more than just the thoughts in your head, right? You can begin to tap into altered states of consciousness, right?
Yeah.
And so I work a lot with clients in learning to access the wisdom of their heart. And I do that through practices called heart-brain coherence, which is when you focus on your heart as a center of energy and you allow it to drive your body's physiological response.
I mean, there's something to be said for when I think tapping into different forms of consciousness. There are a lot of different modalities that we can do that, and I've done a lot. I've done meditation. I've done just laying on the floor, staring at the ceiling. Just anything that we can. Meditation, various ways to kind of just become still. I think is the main approach, and then by becoming still, inserting stillness. For me, even that's going on a walk, how I can insert stillness in my life. It just kind of naturally drives the thoughts and intentions and focus really of our entire being inward. But then when you couple it with the Rasha device, like that experience, would you say that's just it's like another modality of meditation? Just it's enhanced with specific forms of energy and forms of like actual vibrations and sounds and like, am I kind of on the right path here?
Yeah. So you are an infinite being,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when you work with the Rasha, you're engaging with a binary system, right? So it's really it's a device that uses plasma tubes with inert noble gases and Tesla coils
That's right. Yeah.
wrapped
Yeah.
around that basically activates the energy that exists everywhere inside and around us.
Mm.
So the way I like to think about it is by using an imaginary like field, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Um, like in a sci-fi movie or something when a superhero has like
Force field
the
or
force
something.
field
Yeah.
around them,
Yeah.
right? So the Rasha kind of charges the energy in the space. Um, and then we send vibrational frequencies through a vibrating bed and headphones.
Mm.
And what it does is it allows the body to enter into a deep, deep state of relaxation.
Yeah. Very much so. Yeah.
So it harmonizes the hemispheres in your brain um, and alchemizes, in a sense, the molecules in your body.
Mm.
Now, I am not a medical doctor. I don't make any medical claims um, about the healing powers of the device, but um, anecdotally, people report that they experience profound
Mm.
relaxation and reduction in stress, and stress, an abundance of stress in the body and the mind is tied to all sorts of
Oh, it's a common denominator in everything we're
disease.
out to
Yeah.
improve, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. And that, I guess, kind of ties into my mission, which is how do we create greater harmony between human, natural, and technological systems at this place in our evolutionary journey as a species?
Yeah. Well, it all makes sense when I mean, I was just here. I'm becoming way more last year, a year to two, just becoming much more open-minded to practices, modalities, just various ways that I can, improve myself because I've been fooled. I've been wrong before about things that I think that I'm doing or not doing that are keeping me in that safe container, that safe space, that are keeping me on my journey to what I think is, my optimal state of mind and body. And so having like one positive experience out of that lane has made me very, very curious.
Right.
This was very new for me, but at its core, like it makes sense. Like our brains emit electrical current. Our hearts emit a electrical current that you can measure
An
3, 4
electromagnetic
feet
field,
outside
yeah.
of our being. And so when you just understand that as truth first, we have these various versions of wavelengths of energy. By coupling that with intentional energy, intentional sound, like you're saying, it's all vibrations. It's all various forms of energy, and hopefully
Right.
we can kind of like get in sync to allow a much more deep-rooted, calm state of being.
Right.
And that's exactly what I experienced. I remember when we started, and then I think I opened my eyes maybe about like twice. It kind of just like fluttered open, came back down. And next thing I knew, you were coming back in the room, opening the door. I was like, wow, it was 45 minutes. It was nothing. And in that, I was inverted, and people will be able to see that shortly. And I just kind of had my hands rested on my side, and somehow I kind of felt myself like just resting right here on the not quite tops of my quads, but like the sides of my hips, which for me is like a very, very strong, significant origin point for stress and trauma. When I was in the military, I suffered career-ending injuries to my entire midsection, my hips, my back, and it's always been like a point of concern physically, of like physical limitations. And it's also been a very just mentally and emotionally traumatic experience that I kind of always am worried about. But that coupled with an experience of losing my father, the two most traumatic events in my life, for a long time have been areas of fear, a source of fear and concern and, protection. Like, hey, don't go back there because pain happened before. But lately, it's been the more I can revisit those traumas, it's become a source of like a reminder. And it was very weird how I just naturally kind of, my hands and my bodies kind of just came to that position. And I had very, very strong sense of, I wouldn't say heat, but I guess like warmth, just like a very energetic experience. And it was as if my hands in those areas of trauma, my body just kind of became one. So it was like a reminder of like, hey, like, don't run away from this, but just come back to this. You know, this is a reminder of not what you lost, but what you're capable of doing.
Yeah.
It was very interesting.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
so powerful. Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that. You know, I think for me, the real honor of being a steward of this device, truly, because I don't design it necessarily. You know, what your experience is going to be like is very different from anybody else's experience, but it's really rooted in an understanding that our body has already within it the innate desire to heal and to repair and to grow. And so given that you have this association with that space, I'm not surprised necessarily that you were kind of drawn to it, even though it may not be something that you consciously chose to do or experience. There was some knowing inside of you that that was what was being healed or worked on through that experience. And, you know, this device really in a sense is kind of an exploration in consciousness, right? On a molecular level, you know, is everything in our body conscious? You know, we think of ourselves as existing in the realm of our head, but you know, wisdom traditions, especially Eastern philosophies, have long associated with other parts of the body with having innate intelligence.
Oh, right? Yeah, I believe that. Yeah.
The idea of chakras, you know, each being related to different parts of your body knowledge. Right?
I'm laughing. It's funny you say that. I just remember when I went home, I was kind of describing the experience to my wife.
Yeah.
And before I even got into the details of it, she just looked at me and she's like, I don't really like your energy right now. And, you know, maybe it's just, you know, we're 2 years deep into LA, so maybe this is our new norm of conversation. But, and then I began to describe to her, and I'm like, yeah, she actually said, she's like, basically, we're going to be like stirring up all your chakras, like head to toe. It's like a head to toe energetic experience. She's like, oh, yeah, well, just like go like kind of dwell on it. She's like, I don't really like your energy kind of thing. And she's a very intuitive person. She picked up for forever. I've known her. She can just pick up on energy and you know vibes. And she's very sensitive to her environment.
Yeah.
And within moments of coming home, she was just like,
there's something different.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
Before I even fully explained to her.
Yeah. Well, you know, a lot of us walk through the world just, I mean, even just on the level of becoming aware that you have different energy centers in your body and getting them all moving, right? It's about movement of energy.
Yeah.
We often become stagnant in our life. And, you know, so the question is, how do we begin to create an awareness of the places within us that are stagnant and how do we shift those energies as we're moving through the world? And I'm sorry that your wife didn't like it.
It's not that she didn't like it, but she was just like, I don't know, something's going on here.
Yeah. No, I mean, you know, other people that I've had who have come in and experienced it, there's definitely a shift. It does something, but you know, that's the nature of experimental technology. Is that we don't actually know.
Yeah.
You know what how this works.
Yeah.
Right. On a physiological level, it allows you to, like I keep saying, tap into a deep state of relaxation and stress reduction, and it helps to, you know, most people, I would say, most people that I've encountered in my work, really don't know what it's like to deeply relax, right? Because we're so stressed all the time, walking around the world, and you know, it's a stressful environment. Everything you mentioned previously, you guys have one of these devices that protects from EMFs.
The Somavedic.
Yeah,
device.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, people are beginning to realize that there is a direct relationship between our autonomic nervous response and the societies and structures that we, you know, operate within. And so, yeah, time will tell, how that
is consciousness, do you think, kind of like a form of protection from, is it kind of like leading our day-to-day decision making to keep us from kind of revisiting things maybe that we don't want to, and then through this deep state of calm and stillness, whether that's, through the Rasha device or even just meditation or even just going to a quiet room, is it kind of like our way of letting our conscious guard down a little bit, and then the unconscious kind of rises to the top? Because in my experience, every time I've gotten still, every time I've gotten quiet, every time I've done something just to detach, it's just wild what just naturally kind of comes up, even with a matter of seconds.
Yeah. So, right. That veil between conscious and unconscious, right? You think of it like a spider web, that it can be opened and or really tightly closed, right? And so, in my experience of working with scalar energy, it softens the veil that exists between those spaces inside of us, right? The things that we're consciously aware of as we walk through the world, and then the other parts of us that we may not be fully aware of. And so scalar energy has a way of working to bridge those two realities. And
kind of connecting the conscious to the subconscious in a way.
I mean, again, like you said, when you're fully relaxed, when you really surrender to a state of oneness, you have, sometimes you develop a lot of really interesting insights about yourself, about the world. And I think that's where we're going. I think right now, especially over the last year, people have been under an immense amount of stress and anxiety, not being able to leave one's house, not being able to, go to the grocery store without wearing a face mask,
travel, family gatherings, all these norms.
All of the precautions that we've taken to protect ourselves from a virus. It's a huge mental load for our species. And I think where I'm going with that is that, as we emerge from this, how can we take the lessons we've learned over this past year and really re-envision what is possible for our society going forward? Because evolution always occurs in relationship to one's environment, right?
Absolutely.
That's just a truism.
And in a response to a stressor, usually,
And our species is currently exceeding the ecological carrying capacity of the planet, right?
What do you mean by that?
Our global economy consumes approximately 1.7 times the amount of resources that the planet is capable of replenishing in 1 year.
So we're basically living off a credit line of Mother Earth.
Yes. And that is a fundamental disharmony. And in any kind of advanced, interstellar species, which is what we're trying to be. We're trying to go to Mars. We're trying to go to, all of these far out places with our technology. Okay, cool. But we're also systematically destroying the planet where we evolved to survive, right? So there is a fundamental split between, our behavior and our systems that we've created.
Sure, yeah.
And the world around us. And so, part of the reason I like to talk about imagination and creativity is, what are we doing, right? Like, what are we really doing here, and why?
I mean, like, what's our purpose?
Yeah. And, how do we, because nobody can extract themselves from the reality that we all share, which is that our planet is collapsing ecologically. The biodiversity that exists, that supports our our immune system and the resources that we have,
Yeah.
that we need, that we depend on to survive on this planet. It's pretty bleak. And many scientists believe we've already crossed the doom threshold.
Like the point of no return.
Right. But, we live in LA.
Yeah.
You and I live in LA, and we walk around, we drive around in our cars, and we're in this big city where all of that's going on in the background, the unconscious stuff, we don't see it.
Very true. Yeah.
We don't see
Yeah.
it. We don't feel it. We don't sense it. We don't smell it. Right. But in my experience, as you begin to tap into these other centers of wisdom within oneself, you become more capable of showing up for the quantum leap that we have to go through as a species if we're going to get out of this on the other side.
Is this what you were talking about? We were discussing earlier to get out of ourselves a little bit and tap into this bigger system, to go from the egocentric to the ecocentric.
Yeah, there's a larger narrative going on in our development right now on planet that I think is longing to be heard. And it's in a sense, it's a return to indigenous ways of knowing, of being and relating to oneself and one's environment.
I agree. Yeah.
And so if I can use technology to give people a taste of what that could be like for them by fully surrendering to their own body's innate wisdom, then great.
What got you into all of this? Did you have some kind of profound personal experience that led you into this path of being a clinical psychologist and tapping into all these other various modalities, or just always had a high level of curiosity? Or
yeah, well, I would say my work has always been around the intersection of where macro meets micro, right? And these days I'm working as a coach and a consultant, and the service offering I have through the Quantum Clinic is people can come and take an assessment with me, and then if they decide, they can purchase a package of 12 upgrades.
Okay.
So people are coming in and basically spending 3 months of weekly appointments, coming in and having this experience that you had last week. And it has the capacity to really shift things for people. I've seen it in myself, and I've seen it in the clients I work with. But kind of back to your question about what set me on this path. Yeah, I've always been fascinated by consciousness studies. In college I studied international relations, and then that's where I learned a lot about like the environmental crisis we're facing. Yeah. But I in a sense, this is the most woo-woo I've ever been because, my path has always been pretty traditional. Like I was just a therapist, and I've worked in community mental health settings. I've worked with people exiting the incarceration system. I've worked with veterans in disaster relief settings. And so, when COVID happened, I realized this is an oh shit moment for our species. This is like a oh fuck.
Yeah.
We've got to win.
Shit hit the fan fast.
How do you rapidly expand consciousness of an entire species so that we can realize we are more than just a bag of bones and get our shit together and fix our house?
Wow. Yeah.
That's really what I'm trying to do.
Mic drop right there. Yeah. So, like, when all this happened last year, shut down, COVID, was this kind of a pivotal moment for you in realizing this, or just kind of shifting your profession?
Shifting my profession to just apply it in a more concerted way.
Did you find that people were more curious or about this stuff, or kind of already wanting it?
I think our society has been primed for years.
Okay.
I think there is a massive consciousness revolution occurring already. And I'm just, one person, one very small part of that larger story that's going on. In the sustainable self model, I talk about how space-time is the central organizing feature of
That's
evolution.
right, yeah.
And, it sounds kind of silly, but, I like to think about it like zoom out super far, right? You outside of yourself, outside of your body, outside into the universe. The Earth is rotating on its axis. It's moving around the sun.
Yeah,
The
right
sun
now
is
we're moving
in
1,000 miles an hour.
We're moving at the
Blows
speed
my
of
mind.
light.
Yeah.
It really, because the sun is also moving through the universe in relationship to all of the other stellar bodies.
Yeah.
We have no idea how all of that actually affects us on an individual level, but it does. And women menstruate in relationship to the cycles of the moon.
Yeah.
Like, we evolved here on this planet very specifically in relationship to all of these larger forces that we don't really understand. And for the last few hundred years, we've been operating in a Western worldview that basically says we are materialist beings and that, spirituality is something separate from what is objectively measurable and verifiable through scientific inquiry. And what's really rad is that, like, right now, those two worlds are coming back together, that we're bridging the gap.
I
like
agree.
the physics of it and the mathematics behind it, right? The structure of space-time itself is, has basically been discovered. And, that it'll take a while for that knowledge to infiltrate our consciousness at scale. But that's why I'm coming on ever forward.
I agree with so many things you're saying there, but particularly at the end about how, like, as we continue to grow as a species and learn more and unlearn some things, new things come about. Changes to what we formerly held as truth, as law, as science, as belief systems. And in my experience, I'll speak personally, those are the things that take the longest to come around to detach from, or even just be willing to say, yes, I am up for the challenge of revisiting these things that I've held to be true.
Right.
And what I love about your work and how you kind of are defining how you go about this is through first starting on that path through the lens of imagination and creativity. Because I think in order for us to detach from belief systems, truth, mathematics, science, even though before we said it's A when maybe in fact it's B, we have to just detach from what we think is real. We have to step into a more creative, imaginative state of being in order to just go hypothetical, if you will. How have you found that to be received through people looking to come in for this work? Are they able, or do you think we're able now to slip more easily into an imaginative state to just think, well, what is possible? What is going on? What do I want to revisit? Or are we still kind of even coming up against a wall of being able to think creatively, step into a much more imaginative state?
Yeah. That's a really great question. I would say, like, do you remember when the movie Avatar came out?
Oh, yeah.
I fucking loved that movie.
I saw it in the theaters like 5 times.
Yeah. The 3D thing and like when the tails connect and they become like these symbiotic. So what if that were true? What if we actually can already communicate with plants and animals and other humans in a nonverbal way? And the science coming out of places like the Heart Math Institute is basically saying, yeah, your heart is an electromagnetic field. It creates an electromagnetic field that is embedded with information, with emotional information, right? And in my work, when I was working with a lot of people, for instance, who've had traumatic experiences, there was one client. It was like 7 years ago. And, obviously I won't share any identifying information from that. But
HIPAA, don't worry, we're good here.
Yeah. but this person was disclosing some very severe childhood abuse that had never been shared before. And I was sitting maybe about the distance from you that I am now. And as that person shared that story, I literally felt in my entire being like the energy that was emitted and stored in her cardioelectromagnetic field that had never been released.
Wow,
I
that
literally,
palatable.
it was that powerful. I could feel it.
Wow.
So that for me was a total aha moment. I was like, what the hell was that? Because I didn't, at that time, I didn't really understand, how to work with energy in this way. But it opened my mind to that there was something more going on beyond the content of one's speech.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So then how do you begin to explore that for yourself? Well, I think the easiest way to do it is through the heart.
Okay.
And that's why I focus on imagining your heart's power, imagining what is possible when you intentionally generate positive emotions like love, like gratitude.
So you're saying to tap more into an imaginative state, come from the heart instead of the head,
mind,
where we
yeah.
typically think imagination, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So imagining all of the energy that you normally carry in your brain descending down into your heart center, and then working with that space to tap into because your heart actually has more neural pathways that go up into the brain than from the brain down. I mean, obviously it's an interrelated system. It's constantly communicating and sending information to all parts of the body. But your heart, drives this other way of being and knowing in the world that is more energetic, that is more attuned to frequency, energy, vibration. And what's really cool is that like people don't realize that your heart actually resonates at the same frequency as the planet.
What do you mean?
The planet resonates at it's called the Schumann Resonance, and it varies, but it's a range, and it's generally understood to be consistent. And when we can practice heart-brain coherence, those two resonant frequencies are equal. Like it kind of comes back to this whole thing where like walking around, downtown LA, I think of myself as separate from everything around me, but that's actually not true. On an energetic level. And so as you begin to shift your intention and attention away from, just what's going on up here and down into your body, you learn new things.
I think that's so true in so many ways. We typically tend to stay in our heads, right? We stay in our heads because it's what we think we're supposed to use to drive all of our decisions, to keep us safe. I mean, the brain, I always say the brain is the most amazing but also most lazy organ, the most lazy thing we have, because all it wants to do is make as fast of a connection as possible, as least often as possible, so they can just, we can stay in routine, we can survive, really. And the slightest little disruption of that causes what? Confusion, sometimes panic. Even if you normally go home one way, if you take the other way, it's like you're driving in your city for the first time again. And I found a lot of healing, a lot of stepping into a very deep-rooted creative state by just trying to kind of trick my brain in a lot of ways, and I guess inadvertently, tapping more into, well, what does my heart want? What is my gut telling me? Kind of getting out of my head and into these different, energy pathways. I guess just to think and to be and to, consciously live.
Yeah. I mean that's right. Like, we create separateness as a way to understand our experience. This idea that there is an other than us, right? Yeah. And it's helpful. Like, you're like, I do have a physical body. I am sitting on a leather couch right now. Like, those things are real. So I want to be careful, because oftentimes it can be a little disorienting when you start like talking a lot about energy and all of this stuff. But what's important to take away from this is that your brain is not the most intelligent thing that goes on. We think that it is, because that's,
it does do a lot.
It does a lot.
It does a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, without it, we would not be here. But
consumes like 25 to 30% of our daily caloric expenditure.
Yes.
So, I mean,
yes.
that's a lot.
It's a lot. But it's also part of a much larger system that is you. That's
crucial right there. I think that's so important for the listener to take away is it's not the head, it's not the driver's seat. It is a part of a much larger system. And I'll even say our bodily system, but outside of that, your whole point of this ecological system, it's just one small component, one small player in a much bigger game.
Right. And so how do we have those? I mean, how do you have really difficult conversations about the potential collapse of human civilization because of our actions on a global level? Like, how do you even begin to have those conversations with people who run Fortune 500 companies, right? Most people are so detached from the ecological reality, the crisis we face. So, the easiest way in,
I think
is,
are.
Yeah.
It's a very convenient or an inconvenient truth.
It's normal. Yeah. It's normal. I did my dissertation on emotions and global environmental problems because people are like, they don't want to feel that. They don't want to experience what that actually means because
it's not comfortable. It's not safe.
Yeah. No, it's not safe.
It stirs up past
fear.
Shit.
Yeah, all of it. And so, and change is scary for a lot of people. So here we are. How are we going to change our global economic systems from ones that are linear based on infinite growth to ones that look more like a donut? I don't know. I don't have all of those answers. But what I do know is how to facilitate a process of creativity and imagination, and to help people to tap into their own wisdom, their own intelligence that in a way that they might not normally.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I'd like to go next. So the whole point, of all the conversations here on the show and this content is to learn some familiar things, to revisit some known things, but also to provide new things for, I say, just total optimization, just complete head to toe wellness, so that people can pull out what they need and what they want to apply and hopefully improve their life in one way, whether that's, in a therapy session, in the gym, in the kitchen, in your relationships. So how can we apply this message of just stepping out of ourselves a little bit, trying to tap into a much bigger picture, this ecological picture, accepting this whole energetic consciousness mindset? How can we apply it to healing in our life? How can we apply it to improving, I'll say, just any form of our well-being?
Well, that's a loaded question.
Yeah, or
Chase.
what would be the best way to apply it?
The one technique that I often teach is called the quick coherence technique, right?
Okay.
So, I've already kind of walked us through it, but it involves breathing consciously into your heart space.
Okay.
And allowing that to drive your action. So actually, shifting from a place of wherever you operate normally in your head to one of heart knowledge, heart wisdom. And it sounds kind of silly and maybe even a little bit magical, but you actually do experience the world differently when you're in a state of coherence. Like you said earlier in the show, like things sync up.
Yeah.
This whole idea of synchronicity, right? When you see those, it's 11:11 today, when you pick up your phone and you've got those numbers, right? It's like the universe wants you to be in a coherent state. The universe wants you to be in harmony with all that is. So as you begin to shift into that way of being in relationship to yourself, your whole worldview shifts, and it allows you to begin to challenge some of the assumptions, beliefs, and biases that we have in the existing kind of mechanical, biomedical worldview.
Yeah.
And again, I want to caution, because it's not about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. This isn't an either or paradigm, right? It's not just, just because we don't necessarily have the language to describe the types of experiences we're moving towards doesn't mean we need to get rid of all that, we have achieved as humans. Like, it's really awesome that there's these huge skyscrapers here, like, and all of these restaurants and things as they're reopening. Like, it's, the medicine saves lives, right? Like, it's humans are creators, right? But I think we've lost touch with that, with the divine creativity that exists inside of each and every one of us, because we've forgotten somehow that we are part of a larger story. And, if we want to...
we can contribute to that narrative.
And we can contribute to that narrative. There's been this whole distrust with institutions is because people feel disconnected from them, right? We've forgotten that we created everything that we see around us.
Very true.
Like,
we
all
did.
of it.
Somebody
we did this.
Yeah,
Somebody, we, humans,
mankind.
we did, humankind. We did all of it through our own creativity and imagination. So at this time of crisis, as we're exiting a pandemic and moving to the future, I think it is now more than ever so important for us to reconnect with that imaginative process that is highly intuitive, highly creative.
Yeah.
Even if you don't think of yourself as a creative person, right? There are things
especially.
Especially. There are things that you can do to work on those. It's like a muscle, right? You can practice these things and you'll just get better at them over time.
Yeah, which I think is a great time for me to share when I was going through that experience. Anytime I'll go into a stillness or a meditation practice, I really, sometimes I'll have an intention. Other times I just want to just be there and try to just see what comes up. That way, so I feel as consciously as possible, I'm not steering the ship. And for me, it was, as I was going through it, this was a new experience for me. And so I think anytime anybody does something new that maybe has I won't say a promise, but, hey, here's some things maybe you can expect, or it's supposed to help you in any way, our natural initial response, or at least mine, was, is this working? And then it kind of just like stuck with me. And then for minutes, it was just, is it working? Is it working? Is it working? I was thinking about what I was going through. And then all of a sudden I began to just jump ship from, is this working, to, well, what else am I questioning? Is it working? And to my whole point of asking you, how can we take experiences like this and apply it to our healing, our wellness journey? That is a very powerful question. At least it was for me.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, to apply to everything. As we can become, as we can surrender to these experiences and just be still and just see what naturally comes up, like we apply it in all of every version of our life, every place, everything we're doing. So is it working? Is it working? It made me question about, all right, well, if this I'm questioning is working, like, should I be questioning everything that's working? And it kind of sent me down a rabbit hole a little bit of, well, do I need to reevaluate my entire life? But no, it just gave me a unique perspective of, all right, I want to look at this in my business. I want to look at this in my eating habits. I want to look at this. And it's just a very simple but profound question that I can apply to all facets of my life and improve and to make better. And it just stuck with me throughout the whole thing.
That's
Is it working?
great.
Not out of a form of skepticism, but just of curiosity.
Yeah.
And to think differently, to think more imaginatively, if that's a word.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because if I don't think something's working, well, how can I make it work? And if I don't think it's working, well, I've been going about it X, Y, and Z way. Maybe I need to try something entirely different.
Yeah.
In order for us to try something different, we need to get more creative.
Yeah. I mean, and, coming at it from a systems change perspective, that question, is this working for me? Like, in order for things to change, you have to accept the way they are. And so is this working? Is that, that's your wisdom saying, is it working? Maybe the answer is yes. Maybe the answer is yes. Your life is in alignment with your greatest purpose and you are doing exactly what you are meant to be doing here on this planet.
Which confirmation in our life can be so profound.
Yes.
It can remove so many just forms of doubt and just, solidify you in what you're doing.
It doesn't have to always challenge you in a negative way. It can challenge you to reaffirm yourself that yes, in fact, you are on the right path. You know, in a lot working with addictions in the past, you know, that's well, how is it working for you? Right? That you keep going back and using every time you know, whatever. So I'm glad you shared that, and I'm glad that it asked you asked yourself, right? What is working?
Yeah, because it helped a lot and kind of sent me back to the drawing board on a few things. But I think, you know, to someone listening, it could be when you go into the gym, right, and you're just going through maybe the same motions you've been doing. For me, I've experienced that just like, yeah, you're doing something good for your body, but it like to what end? How do you define success?
Yeah.
Are you changing anything for the better? Or are you just doing something because this is what you've always done? Or are you doing it because the people you go to the gym with are just always training this way?
Yeah.
You know, is my diet working? Well, what does that even mean? You know, is my relationship working?
Yeah.
And not a form of skepticism, but just as a way to go back and look at the variables in play and to really bring you closer to how do you define success in this?
Yeah. And as I'm hearing you say that, I would say, is it really working globally that we believe our consciousness to reside inside of our brain?
Wow.
Is it really working?
It's a challenging hypothesis.
Yeah. I don't know. Is shifting it to realize that consciousness just is. And we are a very sophisticated receiver and generator of consciousness.
Which is exactly what you said to me at the end. You said, you know, go home, just think back on your experience. You just received a transmission.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. And your wife was like, I don't like that transmission. Is it working?
I was driving her to a dinner afterwards with some friends, and I was just like, how I am in a lot of experiences, especially something new or whatever, it just kind of gets me in my head a little bit. It gets me in my feels, which is a good thing. It always yields positive change for me. But she was just like, are you okay? Like, are you good? She just kept like looking over at me, and she knows me the most, of course, but it was just like, no, I'm good. It's just, I don't know. I was just like, is it working? Is it working? I think it was kind of even mumbling it out. So she just let me alone after that. She's like, he's going through something.
Well, I mean, it's altered state work, right? It's, you know, when you deeply, deeply relax like that. And I remember when I walked in there, you were like, it's been 45 minutes. You know, it's like it felt for you, time flew.
Yeah.
Right. But you tapped into something inside of yourself that was a shift from your standard operating system.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so we will run around, you know, running our programming that we have for a variety of reasons.
In our routines, in our habits, in our standard operating procedures. Yeah.
And, you know, some people are drawn to this work. Some people aren't. You know, some people are like, nah, is that, you know, and that's okay. But for those who are, you know, it can shift things. It can shift things.
Yeah. What's the phrase? If you think you don't have time to meditate 20 minutes a day, you need to do it an hour.
Yeah.
Somebody recently told me that.
Right. Right.
It's just a matter of getting still. There's so much power in that. So whether that's here at your center using the Rasha device or a journaling experience or meditation or therapy, you know, or just conversation with yourself or somebody else, there's such profound change that happens by becoming still.
Yeah.
It's wild, which is where I think a lot of us could benefit from shifting now. Where are you going with your work the most now in 2021? Is it just trying to bring this type of work more to the forefront of coaching, of therapy, of just daily living?
You know, my personal mission and the reason I started Sustainable Self is to create greater harmony with human, natural, and technological systems. So, you know, I work with a variety of different clients, from organizations like big Fortune 500 companies to individuals who are dealing with something in their life that they're wanting to shift, and then offering the upgrades, the 12 upgrades through the Rasha is a way to kind of, you know, help folks expand their sense of what is
Yeah.
possible. But yeah, I think this year, really moving towards, how do we use, things like artificial intelligence, data analytics, and all of these tools that we have at our disposal to actually make real changes in the world. Not just to develop insights, but to be healing. Because, I keep coming back to this, but it's just true. Like, we are systematically destroying the foundation upon which human civilization depends and rests. And so if we don't in the next, 5 to 8 to 10 years see massive, massive investments in regenerative practices to restore the ecology of the planet, and, we're going to need the technological advances to, maybe carbon capture. I think Elon Musk just like decided he's going to give somebody $1 million if they can come up with carbon capture technology.
Wow.
But like,
I love that guy.
Yeah.
Jeez.
But, we're going to need technological advancements in order to pass through this developmental leap. But we're also going to need unprecedented levels of global cooperation and regenerative earth practices in order to sustain complex life on this planet.
Do you think we're capable of that?
Yes, absolutely. 100%. Will we do it? I don't know.
It's the more powerful question. Yeah.
Yeah. But is this working? No, it's not.
Wow. That came full circle. That was great. Well, I want to thank you for your time here today, and thank you for that experience before.
My pleasure.
I think I've said so many times already that every time I step out of my comfort zone to try training a different way, to try improving my relationships a separate way, to try healing a different way, or just to do anything different outside of my comfort zone. It sounds so cliche, but it's like I don't even know sometimes what I'm there to change, to do differently, but I just know, and this is one of the biggest things I try to pass on the show is, look, there are so many different ways to go about living and being creative and healing and leveling up your life that it's okay. And I would even say it's important that maybe you don't have exact clarity on what it is you're trying to change, because even that is still a little bit of ego driven. It's us in the driver's seat, our consciousness trying to say, this is right, this is wrong, this needs to be better, this needs to be sustained. But when we just do something different, even with just a very, very mild intention, it's pretty amazing what just comes up innately, that,
Yeah.
like it's like, shit, like I didn't even think that I needed to focus on this, or
Yeah.
wow, I had no idea that I was kind of suppressing this emotion
Yeah.
or history, or it's insane.
Yeah. Staying open to possibility, and we live in a holographic fractal universe, and you are just one of 7.8 billion different humans on the planet. So we all are all having a different experience of what it's like to be alive right now.
It's
and when you
insane.
really let that in, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, that's big. Which kind of leads to my final question. I think is a great segue. How do you live a life ever forward? Knowing what you know and your profession, and especially how you share this, like, what does that mean to you? And how can thinking this way, how can this type of work help others progress in life and move forward and live a life ever forward, as we say?
Yeah. The challenge we all face now is how are we going to navigate this shift in paradigm? And what is your soul's journey? What are you here to do on planet in this lifetime? Because, you and I, and all of us are here now at this particular moment in space-time. And the last time the planets aligned like this was the Renaissance. So, if you, whether you believe in astrology or not, like the organizing feature of existence is happening right now. And all you have to do is remember who you are. That's it. Surrender and remember who you are, and show up for the work. because it's going to be ongoing for the rest of our lives.
Surrender. That's been a very key word for me this last year. So just surrendering to whatever.
Yeah.
Just surrendering.
Yeah.
Well, where can people find you? Of course, we're going to have all of your information listed
Yeah.
down in the show notes for people. But if they want to connect with you, learn more about your work, where can they go?
Sure. SustainableSelfInc.com or Dr. Kate Dowling on Instagram.
Great IG again, by the way. It's like I found you, and it's like so well curated and just so it looks great.
Thank
It's
you.
visually appealing, but then when you actually look at what's going on, it's like it's like she got me. She got me with the colors and the graphics, and here's something to ponder. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.